Opentender is a website where you can analyze a country's public procurement data to see how governments are buying goods, works, and services. We call it a data analytics portal. The portal allows you to visualize public procurement in various ways, from getting an overall picture of how much is spent on what, to drilling down into the details of individual tenders. The aim is to allow a range of stakeholders, including the public and civil society groups, government regulators, and even law enforcement agencies, and companies that bid for contracts, to see how public procurement is conducted in a given country. As well as making the data available, we have built a series of indicators that allow users to evaluate the process and outcomes of procurement according to standards of transparency and integrity, so that we can identify corruption risks and then better hold governments to account about how they spend public money. This video will explain the key functions of Opentender and give you a short demonstration of how to use them. Welcome to Opentender. You should see 4 boxes on the home page. One of them is a search function, and the other 3 go to different dashboards, which allow you to analyze the procurement data from different points of view. On the market analysis dashboard, for example, you can get a good overview of the structure of expenditure, how much money the state spends on what kinds of things. You can see market volume broken down by sectors and years, and you can see good procurement scores. On the transparency dashboard, you can analyze how open and accessible the data about procurement are in that country. And you can find the most and least transparent tenders, comparing them according to the market, supplier, or buyer, and benchmarking one tender against others. On the integrity dashboard, you can use our red flag indicators to assess whether the procurement process has been carried out according to high standards of integrity or not. Note that these indicators do not tell us for sure whether a process was corrupt or not, but they tell us about the prevalence of risks that are often associated with corruption. So they're a good starting point for further investigation. In the case of individual tenders, buyers, or suppliers, there could be legitimate reasons for certain red flags appearing. So it's always important to research further rather than jumping to conclusions. Finally, there's also the search function. You can use this to look at subsections of buyers and suppliers, or at companies that are winning in certain sectors. So let's take a look at the market analysis page. This dashboard provides a high-level overview of Ugandan public procurement tendering. The first figure provides a sectoral overview. You can see how much Uganda spends on which sectors, either by volume, or if you click on this tab, by number of tenders. Scrolling down, you can see what we call the good procurement score. This is the average of all our transparency and integrity indicators, unweighted. And you can see how it varies over time and among sectors. That means that at a glance, you can see which sector is behaving best. Scrolling down a little further, you can see 2 more graphs showing number, volume, and average volume of tenders over time. And then on the right, you can see what procedure type is used. This gives you a quick sense of how competitive the public procurement market is in Uganda. Scrolling down a little more, you can see the main suppliers and the main buyers, based on the number of tenders and volume of contracts let or won. You can see who spends the most in terms of volume of spending, and also the regional distribution of spending. At the bottom, you can select a particular sector and see the same market analysis just for that sector. You can also see the risk indicators associated with each individual tender. Let's go now to the transparency dashboard. Here you can get an idea of how much data are open and available and what kinds of data are available. For example, can you get data about which procedure type was used, whether it was open and competitive or closed? Can you get detailed data about the suppliers? You can change the filters to zoom in on a particular sector or time period. The bigger the slice of pie, the more transparent the sector or contract. Scrolling down, you can see how the levels of transparency have changed over time and how they differ according to sector. And again, you can see the indicators for each region's spending. On the integrity dashboard, we help you to analyze tenders according to the standards of the tendering process. You can look at how long a tender was advertised for. A short period is a red flag. It signals poor practice and gets a lower integrity rating. A long period gets a higher rating. You can also see whether the contract was published, what type of procedure was used, how long it took to decide on the winner, and whether there was only one bidder, which is a classic risk factor. Again, you can restrict the sample depending on what you're interested in. If you want to look just at the contracts with a low integrity score, say 50 or less, you can adjust the filters and then see how they're distributed across time and among sectors. Looking at the time series graph on the left, you can see how the integrity score changes over time. On the right-hand side, you see the sectors where these low integrity scoring tenders, this risky spending, is most prevalent. You can easily get a quick idea of what the highest risk areas of spending are in terms of sector, buyer, and supplier. And at the bottom, you can see how the integrity indicators play out for individual tenders. You can also rank them from high to low integrity or low to high integrity. Finally, let's look at the search function. You can use this function to look for certain tenders based on any dimension. So if you're interested in a particular region, a particular time period, or even a particular tender, then this is the place to start. For example, if you're interested in construction tenders that are let through an open procedure type, on the Tender tab, you can filter for those two characteristics. And then you can dig deeper by sorting them according to their integrity score by clicking on the Integrity Indicator button on the table. And if you click on an individual tender, you can see much more information about it. If you're interested in high-risk suppliers in the construction sector, go to the Supplier tab and filter by sector. This will give you all of the suppliers winning contracts in that sector, and then you can rank them according to the integrity indicators. The same thing applies for finding high-risk buyers. You might, for example, filter for buyers that procure contracts with total volume above a certain threshold, or the ones based in a particular city or region. And again, you can rank them by their integrity score. A high score indicates high integrity. So we can find the buyers who are spending money in the least and most risky ways. Click on the profile link, the little building symbol, and then you can get a breakdown, summary tables about all the contracts. And then scroll down to the benchmark current buyer part, where you can compare the spending of this buyer and its associated risks to the average of all others. We hope this has given you an idea of what you can do with these portals, but the best way to find out is to play around for yourself. Enjoy!